Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the webinar, How to Break into the US Market Without Breaking the Bank. And thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time. We had 250 people who are signing up, which I think is very exciting. This is the actual first webinar that I give, so that doubles the excitement. And I'm very happy that so many people signed up. I do like this to be very interactive. To be honest, I'm really used to that. I'm talking to people, not so much to a screen and looking at myself. So put your questions in the chat, and I'll be very happy to answer them. Even during the whole webinar, I'd like to pick them up and take them as discussion points and share with everybody what there is to be shared. And if you think this is really interesting and would like to learn more, I'd be very happy to have a follow-up call or something, 20-30 minute call to brainstorm together how you can be helped or whatever your questions are. So let's get started. But well, before we get started, I would like to tell a couple of things about myself for the people that don't know me. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm building the 7th company at this moment. My previous businesses were in clean tech, biotech, climate tech, basically everything that is good for the planet, good for people. And at the same time, I'm on several boards at this moment. So, I'm really gathering lots of experience, lots of different interactions in Europe, in the US. And that was also the reason why I wanted to do this. Many people know me from PowerNest, which is technology that I've developed for quite a while. Other people know me from Sealer. Other people know me from air-to-water technologies or from any other interaction points. And well, what I do, what is my trade, so to say? So I've made a couple of inventions. I have 23 patents in total. And what I do, I turn these inventions into successful businesses. And what is really important is that they have impact for the planet, impact for humans. So I've been doing a lot of work in the US. I've done my PhD at the University of Miami many years ago. I've lived in New York for a couple of years. I'm originally Dutch, so I was born and raised in the Netherlands. And with my businesses, I brought them to the US and also learned a lot from other people, talking to them. And that's why I'm giving this webinar. Over the last 15, 20 years, I've learned so much. I know what works. I know how you can avoid certain headaches and mistakes. And that's why I wanted to give this webinar, to really share with you how you can pivot more quickly to get to success and good results. And that really also comes from the last scale-up that I exited in the Netherlands. I felt really in the last 2 years that I was, for so many years already, focusing on one problem, delivering one solution to the same kind of people with the same challenges and the same. And I felt like I can do so much more. I have so many more ideas. I have so much more energy for other things that I got together with 15 other founders. And we kind of said, let's help to champion other founders to accelerate quicker, to bring their solutions quicker to the market, and then especially with planet positive solutions, because, well, that's so much needed at this moment for the world. So yeah, basically multiplying our efforts and what we can do, and sharing our experience to create more impact. So yeah, let's go to the slides, right? Here we go. So yes, this is what I already told you. What do we do? Well, we help startups and scale-ups to well, to enter the markets more quick without making the mistakes, without having to reinvent the wheel. We help them to connect them to capital, and we help them to make critical changes so they become attractive to capital. So that's what we do with Nexuma, and we do that especially for planet positive companies, which can be from any industry, between photonics to, we worked with oyster banks, we've worked with oyster reef, we worked with climate tech, biotech, all kinds of industries. And this could have been my picture, because when you're a founder, when you're leading a company, you have a million things on your mind, and it's really hard to really put all detail and effort and everything. It's really actually impossible. So what usually happens as a human reaction, you start to micromanage, you start to reinvent the wheel, you want to take control on things to ensure that you have success. And what is the result? You don't sleep at night. You have, these thoughts, they all become blurry, you panic, and there you go. It's going to be a difficult time and an unamusing ride. And so one of those topics would be entering the US market, because you want to grow your company. So let's get into that, because this is one of those important topics, and maybe the title already said it, how to enter the US market without breaking the bank. We could also say without breaking your head. That's usually what happens after you break the bank. All right, so I would like to ask a question to the audience, just to see who we have here. Are you planning to enter the US market? Are you already actively entering at this moment, or neither, and you're just here to listen out of interest? So it would be great if you could share in the comments where you're at. You can do it with the number, you can put some more text if you like, but it would be fun to see who we have at the table today. All right. While you do that, I'll go to the first slide of this webinar. And today we're going to talk mostly about before you enter the US market. And I'm thinking about a follow-up webinar where we're going to talk more about when you are in the US market and how you can most successfully manage that. So I've created a couple of topics, and also just to make you aware of certain resources. Some people are aware that there are resources before you enter the US market, which are business missions. They're usually funded by either the country where you're at now or the European Union, and I'm not aware of similar initiatives from governments from Asia or Middle East or South America, but I'm sure they're there. But make use of those. But there are a couple of things that you really need to be aware of, because many people, they just say, oh, let's do this business mission. We pay a small amount, the rest is paid by the government. Hooray! And let's see what there is to get and if this is interesting for us. Many of those, 7 out of 10, I would think that go like that. And that's from my experience. I think I've done like 15 or 20 of these business missions. I've been in Asia, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, in the Middle East. I think I've been in every country in Europe with business missions, and in the US, East Coast, West Coast, and many places in between. So I have a lot of experience in these missions, and I really would like to sharpen you before you invest your time and money in this, because you really need to go with a plan, and a plan like, what do I want to get out of this, and what is your goal, a measurable goal, right? Not just explore and see what is there to get. Now there's something, when you will do this for the first time, or so many times actually, there's always a big vibe of excitement. And what I've noticed when you're in these missions and you're with this group, and usually you're prepped before you go with a couple of meetings, and then you're there and you have all these founders in a group. And the founders are very excited. They know how to really positively share their stories and successes. They're very competitive at the same time. Logically, that's their nature. And that together, and they're also very supportive, I have to say. Like, there's really a team feeling and everybody's supportive. So what you end up with is a team of founders on steroids who's very stoked and very excited, which is great. But that also makes you forget a little bit about your plan and goals and be really down to earth. Like, what do I need to reach here? And then on the other hand, there is this supporting team from the government who is supporting you in their best way, but it's like putting oil on the fire, making you more excited and forget about your goals. So it's really important to have that plan, have your checklist before you go there, and follow up on your plan. Now, the other thing that some of my missions were really unsuccessful, even though I got great results there, I met the right people, but I didn't have a follow-up plan. So what's really important when you're meeting with that dream client, you need to have local presence. Now, it doesn't make sense to be there, then go back to Europe, to where your office is. You're going to be overwhelmed again with all the things that you have to do, and you're going to forget about them. And there will be a time differences. There's a limitation of online meetings. You might meet with them, you have contact, you shoot some emails for 2 weeks, and then it kind of blurs away from their side as well as yours. They might not be answering anymore. So when you go, I mean, it's really smart to plan to stay a month there, so you can keep following up, really build a relationship with the people you're meeting and talking with, or already hire a local presence who can follow up and is dedicated to become the face over there for the people you're meeting and creating certain expectations. Yeah, let's go to the next. So this is also important, and I've seen many people going wrong here, losing a lot of money and wasting time of themselves and of other people's. So my golden rule is that you must have $2 million. I would say at least, because I came up with this 3 years ago and we had a lot of inflation. So I would say $2.5 million to burn, to really literally burn to enter the market. And you're going to have results after 18 to 24 months, like your first measurable results or some returns. So it's really important that everybody in your team, the team at home, the co-founders, the shareholders, their investors, that they really signed up for burning 2 million to enter the US market with a big chance that it may fail, right? That's what you're getting yourself into. Now, the other side of that is if you think like, oh, I'm a smart guy, this works a little bit, we did this really great in Europe, and so we know really a lot of stuff, and we are there just, we can do that similarly, and we can save some money. So then really forget about it. If you're going to spend 1 million, 1.2, 1.3, you have such a high risk of losing that with no success, that I would really advise to then wait until you have that budget available for you before you enter the US market. So it's really a matter of commitment, and I think that commitment also radiates to the clients, the potential clients you will be speaking to, because you'll be standing there very solidly saying, if they ask, I'm going to be here for 24 months and we're committed to entering this market. They will feel that, because nobody wants to buy a product of where the company after 6 months left the country, and where's their warranty and all of that, right? It's all a matter of trust and how the future will look like. Another thing with the budget, and this is where most people cut corners, is that they hire juniors only, or they think, oh, these American people, they are so expensive, they have a higher salary than in Europe, so let's come with a European team. So both of that will drastically fail. I will share later why you need to come, or at least have 50% of your team be American, and I mean local, from where you're entering the market. And with juniors, well, you're going to leave a junior expression to your client. And I think you need really the senior expertise and leadership to build a new business, because entering the US market is very similar as building a new startup. The only difference is you probably have your product ready for the US. I would recommend to have it ready, meeting all regulations. But for the rest, the whole commercial part is the same as in a startup, which is very challenging. So I have another question to the audience. So are you planning to manage the US market entrance from overseas as a founder? Will be or are there in the US, will you be there in the US with hands-on support to the entrance team, or you didn't decide yet? So answers in the chat, and we'll be happy to look at it later. And that question kind of goes to the founder and commitment presence, which is really important. I've worked with companies, advised them to enter the US market, helping them with sales, but it's so difficult when somebody's on the other side of the world. So what you're going to, so you need to imagine both your own situation when you are in Europe or anywhere in the world in a time difference. You'll have your full-time job and commitment on the European business that you're running. And at the same time, in the evening, you need to be online, be there for the team, be there for the questions, be there for the brainstorming, be there for the pivoting. That's a double full-time job. And with the time difference, that is just too difficult to do that for a long time. And as we said before, it will take 24 months to really get a presence in the US market. So to do that for 2 years, it's either going to, burn you out, you're not going to have the fun anymore, and the motivation just sails away. So it's really important to be as a founder in the US market and support the team. The other side of that importance is that you have somebody who's going to take over all your tasks in Europe, in the European company. And you can see in this picture, this guy has his US team there brainstorming about how, to pivot and how to need to address the clients and answer them and try to bring them to that customer journey. And he's there with a headache because something went wrong again, and he's responsible and he wants to solve it, and he's at a distance, and it's just all big headache. So just to give you, really a straight out comparison. So when you're not present in the US as a founder, that is no, let me rephrase this. So yeah, when you're not present, you're going to end up with slow traction in your sales, because your clients, they want to see the founder, because this is a first time product in a new market. They want to buy it from the founder, including the storytelling, including the trust from the founder and how he built it up and what's the vision behind it. So you're going to end up with slow traction. And your team will be all over the place, confused, don't feel like they have the support and to move forward as is expected. So what you're going to see is that when they will be in the meetings, etc., but when you're not there, they might be distracted with other stuff because they don't feel that you're as committed as is expected from them. Now, the other scenario is that you stay in Europe, that you're present and that you are also running the business in Europe. So that is really a bad experience and is going to end up with a real bad headache because both the European business and the US business will not do well. So really important to have yourself being replaced at least for 90% of your responsibilities. So you can have a 30-minute call in the morning if you want to check in every day, and then turn off that European phone line and focus on the US. That's what you really need to do. I usually say at least for the first 3 months, but I would actually say, well, if it doesn't work in the first 3 months, you also know where you're up against actually. But I would say at least for 12 months. And what is the result again? Low traction, because you're not focused. The team is not well supported. They're constantly waiting for you to be available. And a lot of money and time wasted. Now, the other scenario is that you are present, right? You're committing, you're sitting at the same table as your team there in the back, and you're brainstorming with them together. You bring in all your experience with this product and with this business, how to pivot, and you're really open to learning from them as well, how this is different in the US. So it's really a big learning cycle for everybody, how to bring that product in the market, in a new market where there are so many differences, even when things look the same. So the results will be, you'll be full on, and you will make and feel making steps forward, which is very important. So your US team is motivated, and your EU team will be cheering when you can share successes, right? So very important. Now let's go to the next slide. Because your initial hiring, well, hiring is difficult also in the US. I couldn't say where it would be more difficult in the US or in Europe. I personally always found it difficult. There are a lot of helping resources also in the US, where you have recruiters and headhunters, etc. I would recommend your hires to be from the industry, track records. It's very common in the US to check references. In Europe, they ask, but they often don't check. But I would definitely do that in the US. And you need to set up a team of sales, at least one. Well, I always say one sales is no sales. So I would recommend two, because salespeople are usually very competitive. So they like to, compete each other out, which is a very positive vibe that you get in the team then. Healthy, of course. One business developer, which could be yourself as founder. That's definitely a possibility. But then I don't know. I think as a founder, you need to be hands-on in everything, but also with an overview of everything that is happening and going along your vision. So I wouldn't be too hands-on. So I would hire a business developer who has done this also before, with a good track record. I mentioned this before. Some people go for juniors to save money. Honestly, don't do it. Time is your most valuable thing. You don't want to waste time, and you don't want to give a junior impression to your clients. So work with seniors, and a great combination is to have one senior and one junior, so they can educate each other, and bring somebody from Europe if there is a lot of technical things involved that require explanation. That's a good combination, to have an engineer together with a US salesperson, and they can answer all questions that the client may have together. So that's a really good way to work. So local network in the industry. They know the local culture. That's really important. Focus on one region. I'll talk about this in a minute. Many people think, I'm going to enter the US market, and then they start in New York, and 1 week later they fly to California, and then they go to Houston, Texas, and then they go to Miami, and then that's very interesting for your exploration. But if you have to do that while entering the market, you're gonna just be in airplanes, spend a lot of time on traveling, spend a lot of resources, and you're going to find out that cultures, and also business cultures, are very local in the US. And I think I have this also in another slide. All right, so let's go there. First a question to the audience. So as a founder, what role do you take on? So A, I'm involved in everything because I want to know every detail. 2, I delegate everything so I can overlook everything, right? Keep your hands free. And 3, I have a great team and we manage this together. So again, put your answers in the chat. Would be nice to learn about that. And this question is really like what is your philosophy of being a founder? If I look at these 3 answers, you could say like one is really the startup mode, where you really want to be involved in everything because you are building it up and you want to know every detail, but it may end up in micromanagement. When you're delegating everything so you can overlook everything, well, that's, I guess, is the other extreme, right? But when you enter the US market, you can't really pivot without generating the data that you need to understand yourself. So you need to be in meetings. You need to hear the clients. It's not only learning it from your team, but you need to see because they can overlook things. Be in those meetings yourself, and if you don't want to speak too much, then look on the body language. That's always a great thing to do, and be there as a founder. Show that authority, and that's very valuable to US customers. My preference is that it's all teamwork and we manage it together. And again, same as building up startups, entering the US market is like doing a startup commercially. You have to manage that together. So it's really all hands on deck. So let's go to this slide. Let me get some water first. So, well, this is about a clear role definition. And I love this picture with one guy wearing 3 hats, building a website at the same time, on the phone, talking to clients while he's making the strategy. Well, everybody knows that's not going to work. And it's really important that your salesperson only does sales. And why is this even more important than usually? Well, because you're entering a US market, it's going to be very tough to generate your sales. You're going to get a lot of no. You need to find your early adopters, and it's that might wear you out sometimes. And what is a human reaction? Well, let's go for a quick win. I update the website. I update the brochure. Let's look again at the strategy. While actually what a salesperson needs to do in that moment is to either sit together with his team and throw out like, oh my God, this is so difficult. And why do I get these answers? What are we doing wrong? And then really ponder, take that time to ponder about why is it not working? What do we need to pivot? Well, that's sales strategy though. That's something that a salesperson needs to do. But really ponder together and pivot again. Because this is really the pivoting stage of entering a market. That's why it's also even more important to have the founder physically there, especially during those moments, because the founder has already been through that, brings in a big amount of resilience as well, so he can. And I guess there's also something where a salesperson wants to prove himself, and when it's not working, it might demotivate and feel like, what am I actually contributing to the company? Do they still think I'm the right person for it? So let's update the website and the brochure. So at least I brought some value. These are all, it's all the psychology of entering this market. So keep those roles very clear. Sales stays with sales, also when it gets difficult. Business development is business development. And more important, don't make the mistake to let your salespeople do operations. or deliver products and services, it doesn't mix. It's distracting, and you're lowering your chances of success, really, because it also looks weird when you're going into a service agreement with somebody. You're going through the legal, you're discussing the offering, you're negotiating the price, and then 1 week later, the same sales guy's in front of the door and says, "Oh, here, I also have a different hat. I come now to actually do the thing that you hired us for." That just looks a little bit unprofessional. So don't do that. And I would also separate the back office for the follow-up. Back office can be done from Europe, but they do need a certain training in cultural difference. Like, for example, you always answer within 24 hours. There's lots of expressions of gratitude in emailing and respectful talking. I guess, well, I'm from the Netherlands, so we would be a bit more direct. But in the US, you would really thank people. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your interest. So there's a lot of thank yous, which is just really respectful, Yeah. So on the cultural side, this is the one that I love the best. When you're in a meeting and the meeting is running out of time, and people here are also very strict. Like, time is very important. I had 30 minutes for this call. On the 31st minute, I want to get out. I have other stuff to do. So they really say this in a nice way, and they say, I really want to be respectful of your time. Shall we continue this discussion another time or plan for a follow-up meeting? Right? It's really in a very respectful way that this is being introduced, right? It's the end of the call. All right. So, I think that was for this slide. Let's go to the next one. And this is about cultural differences, and I want to give you the example. And when I first came in the US in 2007, I think I already said this to everybody, like, because I came to Miami, and Miami is not really like, oh, you come to the USA and everybody's wearing a cowboy hat, and that's Texas, or everybody is flashy. Wall Street guy or woman. No, this is Miami, and here people speak Spanish. So I was like, oh my God, there's so many cultural differences. So I looked up, and the land size of the US is 9.8 million square kilometers. Europe is a little bit bigger with 10.2 million square kilometers. But there is actually a very small difference, which is 4%, which is really small. But to give you the example, in Europe, you can't compare the cultures and also the business culture. I would just not talking only about the wine and the cheese and the food and everything. So you can't compare Italy with Norway. You can't compare Spain with Germany. And you can't compare the Netherlands with Greece, right? It's huge, huge, huge difference. And people really can understand each other in the wrong way. But so you can also not compare people from Texas with Massachusetts, Florida with North Dakota, or people from Tennessee with California. So try to imagine those cultural differences in values. I think I would like to add nowadays, don't talk about politics, never. But from the politics, you can see also how the values and the cultural experience is different in different regions. So just to give you an example, I was looking for capital in the US, and I got connected to an investor who was a high net worth in Las Vegas. And so after some emailing, I think he didn't even, I didn't even have a call with him, but he invited me to come to his home in Las Vegas, which of course I checked on Google Earth. It was a big villa, but he invited me to his home, and that was fine. But and then he invited me to go for a motorcycle trip, because we shared some things about motorcycles before. And he said, I have like 6 or 7 motorcycles. You take one, and we go out for a trip for a weekend. And so, that was like a cultural thing that I was like, okay, I don't know. How am I going to say no to this? Or another one, what I noticed when I lived in New York is that everything goes through a business lunch. And you can see all the restaurants full. Everybody's lunching. It's quite nice because they have great restaurants in New York, but it's a different way. So you need to be aware that everything goes to a business lunch, and it's a very serious meeting, actually. Yeah. So 2 examples. Now the other thing, and that's why I put this picture here, is that on, for example, those business missions. And especially after having been in the US for a long time, I started to notice the differences. And we think as Europeans that the US, because they look like us, there are many things the same as us, but there are really cultural differences that are very, very hard to understand sometimes. To give you a simple example, so this founder team, come out of a meeting with a client. The client is respectful and polite. He will say you, this is great, right? Respectful and polite, keywords everywhere in the US. Great, amazing that you did this. And this is very interesting. Congratulations. That also means good for you. Don't call me again. Right? So this is really important to understand. Interesting. When somebody says that's interesting, that means good for you, but I'm actually not interested in a follow-up, but good for you, that's it. So they will respectfully cheer for you, but there is not a client. Well, if me coming from the Netherlands, if somebody would say that in the Netherlands, that means you got to base 1 with this client, let's plan the follow-up. So this team is walking out, sharing it with the other people. We had a great meeting. It went fantastic. And he's super interested. I'm sure he's going to be a client. And then he didn't answer and return the emails anymore. Right. So, and I would really recommend before entering the US market to get like a course or something about the cultural differences. There is a great book, which I probably have here behind me, but I'll in a follow-up, I can definitely share the book, which is a great study that gives you a very good understanding of the cultural difference between the US and European countries. All right. Now, the regulatory readiness. So there are really a lot of differences in the US, and I think the word country is what confuses us, because the US is a country, the USA, but it's really 50 different countries under one federal government. But you have to understand really well that every state has its own laws, has its own regulatory basis on products, on tax and accounting, legal, very important. So there's really a lot of difference for every state. So don't think I'm going to enter the US markets with especially for hardware products, right? There's a lot of more regulatory around safety and other product regulatory items per state that you really need to understand well. For software, this is easier because it has less regulations, of course. And so be selective and really know from your business missions or other activities that your pre-studies and your business plan to enter the US market. Understand where you want to start, and also understand it would cost a lot of money to meet all the compliance in different states. So it's better to focus on one state, preferably one city, where you're going to focus on and really going to completely own the market before you start to expand. So that's really like a guideline that you have to keep in mind, because it is very important to meet very expensive to meet all the regulations everywhere, unaffordable on a market entrance, I would say. And there's also, if you don't meet them, you're going to make very expensive mistakes. So and clients, they are aware that those mistakes can happen, so they will ask you A to Z, if you have met all the regulations and law in the state specifically, so they're actually able to buy your product, right? So yeah, I would say don't shoot with hail on the US market, but understand that you really need to focus before you can expand. And it would be beautiful if you can own first that smaller region, and then maybe you can take 2 other regions, right? If you start in Boston, you can probably pretty quickly go to the New York market as well. But really understand there's a big difference between New York and Massachusetts, even culturally already. And try to expand in that way. That's a good way to do it. Yeah, and then outsourcing. So outsourcing, I think more than in Europe, in the US, people outsource everything when it comes to administration. Let me get some water. Like really everything. So I've learned it here for starting businesses, having to go through that whole process, and also helping other companies. But they outsource the full accounting, the bookkeeping, tax advisors, of course. They outsource everything that is legal, including intellectual property, but that's common. That's also in the US, but also all other legal. So you'll basically have one legal advisor who you're going to ask everything. And the HR is completely outsourced, from headhunting to recruitment, but also PEO, which is basically a payroller. So because in every state they also have different laws and regulations about employment. So when you hire a PEO, you can they are aware of all those regulations. You need to get handbooks, for example, which is the same as a policy in Europe. So an employee handbook, which can be different for every state, right? So you need to have multiple handbooks. Now that's something that they do as a daily business, so they know everything exactly. They'll make adjustments to what you do as an operation. But you outsource everything to this PEO. You pay, a small percentage of your payroll to them, and they take care of everything. So what they basically do, they hire your employees for you. So they're your employees, but they're on their payroll. And that's, then this is all avoiding headaches. Don't try to, dive in yourself. I can do this myself like I do in Europe, or we do this ourselves, or we do this from Europe. No, forget about it. That's just going to cost you a lot of trouble and probably a lot of money and damages and whatnot. So outsource and delegate as much as you can. And this is also nice because then you can really focus on entering the market and be with your sales and business development team to make that happen and be focused on that. Yes, so I think this was actually the last slide that I have on the topic before you enter the US market. I am preparing another webinar which really goes on the detail of when you are in the US market, where you really like some tips and some guidelines of how you can make that work effectively and successfully. And again, if you have any final questions, then please put them in the chat. I'll be very happy to answer them. And follow up, you will receive a follow-up email where you can sign up to have a follow-up call with me if you want to get into more details specifically about your company, your product, your business, or things that are working, not working. I'd be happy to share experiences to make you champion faster and more successfully. I haven't seen any questions in the chat so far, but I'm going to give it another minute, maybe 1 minute. So if you have one, type quickly, and happy to discuss them and answer them. We are pretty good on time, though. I planned it for 45 minutes. This is, I guess, this is a Dutch talent to always be so on time. We have a question. This is an important one. Why is Delaware often used as a city for headquarters? You can register your business in every state, but what foreign companies do, they use Delaware to register their company, which I would definitely recommend. There are a couple of important reasons. I think the most important reason is that Delaware doesn't have a jury when you have a legal conflict. So you can imagine when you have a jury, which is a random selection from US citizens, that they would tend to favor the US person who is in the lawsuit. So you will have a judge deciding on such trial. So that's an important one, what I heard from companies. Another one is that their legal system and their laws in particular are very similar as the European one. So you won't get too many surprises. I live in Miami in the state of Florida. The laws here are very different from the European ones. So that's an example. So what you do, you register your LLC in Delaware, and then maybe your business is in New York or in California or Florida, Texas, whatever, Philadelphia for that matter. Then what you do, you have your headquarters there, you register a commercial entity in that state where you are having your business and where you have your actual office, but you're still under the bylaws of your Delaware entity, but you pay tax in the state where you have revenues, right? So that's how they do it. So you have your Delaware, and under it you have different commercial entities where you have business in different states. So that question was from Marcel. Thank you very much for that question. I hope it answered it. Esteban, what was your biggest challenge in Miami besides the cultural barriers you already spoke about? My biggest barriers. That's a good question, right? Yes, I think Miami is a very how am I going to say it? The fabric of Miami is very separated. There are so many cultures. I think they have all the cultures in the world here. There are so many cultures, and everybody drives by car everywhere, that you don't have this interaction as much where you walk into people. So you have to go to the places to meet them here more than in New York or other places. So a barrier wasn't to get into those groups of people, associations, to get your business contacts or to look for your clients. So what I did in the first year, once or twice a week, I went to an event, and different events in, mostly focused in my industry that I'm interested in. And I got to know people, and you need to know people. You need to meet them at least 3 times before they remember you, maybe 4 times, in order to really have a relationship. I think you need to spend 40 or 50 minutes with somebody to get a certain type of first level relationship. And the great thing is at events you can do that. If you meet somebody 3 times and you talk 15 minutes, you have 45 minutes together, and people will start to remember you, and you connect on LinkedIn and you follow up. And that's how you start to build a network. So I guess the barrier is that if you think you can do it here similar as in Europe, no, you really need to invest here. And you will know that certain clubs are exclusive, and it will take you 1 or 2 years before you're allowed to enter by getting invited to somebody. But usually in those exclusive environments is where you meet the decision makers. So, every city has its own things. There's a lot of similarities with New York. I always say Miami is like the backyard of New York, because many people from New York come in the winter to Miami, and it's like a sister city. So lots of similarities, but also, again, big differences, which you really need to understand. And that also stresses that you need to work with local people, because then you're already in that network. Okay, I hope that answered your question. Robert, does current administration more momentum for entrepreneurs to move to the US? Does the current administration? Well, what I've seen, and I see that it's also diminishing now, thanks God. When the new administration came in, there was a lot of angry attitude from Europeans, disappointment. Founders, they said Canada is now going to be our market. But I've seen it coming back to the US. And what I want to say, if this administration makes things more difficult to you or not, you could see this as an opportunity. If you come in this market now and you start to invest and build your network and build your base of clients, you'll have that first mover advantage compared to people who will wait until the next administration, right? And this administration will not be there forever. So there will be different times. They always change. So if you invest now, you'll be on the top when things really start to move again, if that is specific for your industry, right? So that's how I look at it. Esteban again, if it's the same person. Is it true that Florida presents advantages from a tax perspective? Yes, that is definitely true. It is attractive for employees because you don't pay state wage tax. So, for example, in New York, you pay federal tax, you pay state tax, you pay city tax. So the amount of tax is just really expensive in New York. In Florida, you don't pay city tax and you don't pay state tax. You only pay federal tax. So you end up with a much lower amount. They also have this in tranches. So you can easily find this online, what the federal tax is, and then you know what you're going to pay. And this is attractive for your employees. And, Florida is a nice place to live. It's, when I live in the Netherlands, I said it's like 11 months of winter and clouds and rain, and here it's 11 months of summer. So, I'm sure if you have the people in your team, they wouldn't quickly say no to move to Florida. Arthur, fantastic, Alexander. Well, thank you very much. Great webinar. We'll chat soon. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Marcel, I need to drop off taking flights to Amsterdam. Many thanks for sharing your insight and knowledge on entering US market. Much appreciated. Wie weet tot ziens, which means who knows, see you soon. So great, and I really enjoy doing this. It was fun, it was weird to just talk to the screen, but I'm really happy to see your questions and happy to share my knowledge. And I really hope it helps you with, creates clarity on your path entering the market, so you can navigate more efficiently. And I would say connect on LinkedIn and shoot an email to alexander@nexuma.com if you want to brainstorm, and you'll also receive a follow-up email. So great. Well, thank you very much. All right.